Everybody all set? Hi everybody, how we doing? Good, good? All right. Yeah, now I see a lot of familiar faces. A few new, a lot of familiar. Okay, good. So I have a new face to introduce to you before we start. Is that okay? All right. This is Roger, everyone. Roger. I wore my Homebridge shirt today, so you remember I don't work for Keller Williams. Everybody just thinks I do. Okay, I did. You know, those of you who know, I'm going to go over who I am in a minute, but those of you who know me, a lot of you knew me from when I worked directly for Keller Williams or when I was a contractor for Keller Williams. Now I work for Homebridge. And that's a mortgage company, for those of you who don't know. And Homebridge is actually a really big mortgage company, about $20 billion a year in business. Prospect, which is who I worked for, was one of the top retail independent mortgage companies in the country. Homebridge, the company we merged with, I don't know if we merge when we have their name and their leadership, but either way, it's a merge. That's what I was told, so I'm going to go with it. Anyway, they were really big on the wholesale side and on the like just being like behind the banks and stuff. Okay, so you probably all did business with Homebridge at some point without even realizing it. Did a lot with the brokerages and things like that. So they combined to form just a massive mortgage company, and it's a really good one because what they did was they went and hired me. No? Nothing? Okay. Anyway, very humble. Very humble. Okay. No, what they did, it's funny, I do mean myself, I don't mean me particularly, but what they did was they went out and they hired in a couple of different spots, New England. My region is New England and the Midwest, and then there's somebody out on the West Coast that does, I have Chicago and everything east, and she has everything west of Chicago. And basically, we're both top producing realtors. When we're selling real estate, we both sold a lot of houses, and our job is to come in and work with realtors. Okay, so we're kind of a value add. What they said was, we want to be able to add more value to make better relationships with guys like Roger, the loan officer, and the realtors. So what can we do? Well, the first thing you have to do is go and get a few realtors and find out what they want. What can you give them? So we came up with a lot of tools and things, and one of the tools that we came up with was me, okay? Like my job, where I come in and I work individually with some agents, do some consulting, and I do trainings for offices, which works out well for me because that's what I did with Keller Williams anyway, right? So I basically teach the same classes I always taught, but now I do it and say, hey, don't forget Roger, help bring me here. And to be honest with you, that's why I'm here, okay? I'm not, you know, no surprises, no secrets from me. The reason I'm here is because I want to introduce you to Roger, and I am hoping that you will all give Roger a chance because Roger is a very good loan officer. Okay? Fair enough? You don't have to. You're all welcome to stay, even if you're not going to use Roger. I'm just not going to call on you. That's all. All right, so with that said, how many people now don't know who I am? Haven't been in a class with me before? Just the three, so? 1, 2, 3. You haven't? Yeah, this one you had, okay. All right, see that? All right, so basically, my name's DeCristofaro. I'm the business development manager for Homebridge Financial. I was a top producing realtor for about 8 years. My first year I sold 30 houses, and I was selling I was selling about 100 houses a year for 3 or 4 years before I decided that I wanted to become a national speaker and trainer, so I came over to Keller Williams to do that. I became a team leader. I was in 3 different market centers. One was in Rhode Island, one was up in Maine, and one is down in Anniston, Alabama. I like to say Alabama last. So basically, I did that, and then I became the regional technology and lead gen director. And then I went off on my own, the course that I teach, in fact, the one that Patrick still carries on, carries the brand on here, okay? Was the system that I created, and I went around the country teaching that for about 3 years. I got bored. I got burned out is more like it. I got burned out traveling. I literally lived on the road. And I came to work for Prospect and Homebridge, and voila, here I am today. So, I was talking to Patrick at the regional masterminds. How many of you went to it? No one in this room went to it?
Couldn't get the ticket fast enough.
Oh, that's right. It was a fast sellout, wasn't it? Yeah, I heard that. They need a bigger room, I guess. Yeah. Let's sell it in hours, I heard, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well anyway, sorry you couldn't get there. But anyway, so I ran into Patrick. I haven't been here in a while. And like I said, I really want you guys to meet Roger. And I'm going to ask Roger if you wouldn't mind, pass your cards around. Okay, if you guys are okay. That's the last commercial I'm going to do for Homebridge. Fair enough? We'll see. I lie. Sometimes it's just too good to pass up, and I'll say something. But that's the last. That is the last scheduled commercial. All right. All right. So, anywho, what I want to talk about today, for those of you who've taken my course before, this is completely different. Okay, this is completely different. This is nothing like what we did. This isn't for lead generation, okay? Because again, those of you who have taken my course, you lead generate so that you can capture leads. Once you capture leads, your job is to convert the lead, turn them into a client, right? Hopefully you have some sellers. Now here's the thing, when you have some sellers, at least when I was selling real estate, just because I was offered a listing didn't mean I was going to get excited. You know when I got excited? When I got a sellable listing. Sellable listing. What makes a listing sellable? Price, period. Here's the thing, like when I do an expired class, I'll tell people, why didn't your house sell? It's one of or a combination of 3 reasons. It is marketing, condition, or price. Now let me ask you something. Can marketing cure condition? No, absolutely not. Can condition cure marketing?
Yes.
Yeah, somewhat. If you can get them there, right? You got to, if you can do that, right? It can help. Can price cure both?
Yes.
Can either of those cure price? No. I'll tell you what, if you have a house that's in a great condition, you're going to get a little bit more money, aren't you? But it's price that sells the house. Now, how many of you have gone into how long have you all been in real estate? Anybody here brand new? Okay, a couple, okay. But basically, for the most part, those of us who've been selling for a while, Patrick, block your ears, I know you don't want to hear this. When you kind of drive by a house, the first time you walk in, don't you have an idea of what that house is going to sell for? I mean, have you ever walked into a house with one of your buyers, you walked in and you said, whoa, overpriced. Or you walked in and you said, underpriced. Right? Or priced just right?
That's a rarity.
Yeah, especially in this market. In this market, that is very rare. And it's funny. It's one of the things that I was talking about. I was just talking to Ron out there. In this market, it's really hard. You come in, even with the inflated prices in mind as you do your market analysis, and you come in, with that figured in, right? With the increased prices figured in, and because it's a fast market, the seller still wants
more.
So the challenge becomes, now here you are, you have a good house in good condition, you have a great market, and you still can't sell it. How come? Well, because they priced it above the overpriced market. And that happens. That stinks, doesn't it? Because like I said, you get excited, you have a listing, now you want to sell it. And we all know, we've all seen the charts and whatnot, right? We know, when does 80% of the traffic find out about that house? 80% finds out when? In the first 7 days. They find out in the first 7 days, don't they? So basically, if you come in trying the market out and you're overpriced, you lost a big chunk of the market. Okay. If you have a property that is overpriced at the beginning and you've lost that big chunk of the market for that first view, or even worse, a lot of them saw it and have eliminated it because it's too much money. The second problem that we have is we do something called chasing the market. Anybody know what that means? I've talked about it before. You chase the market. Okay, listen, I'm going to tell you guys something. This is true story. God's honest truth. Just so you know, it happens to everybody. I'm going to steal a nice purple marker here, okay? It happens to everybody. My family, give you a little behind the stage here, behind the curtains here. My mother, we just put her into an assisted living. I have not lived in Rhode Island for a while. Now, I have a brother who, thankfully, does live in Rhode Island. He's been taking care of everything, which is no complaints from me, okay? I've been out of the state for a long time. Technically, I'm not a realtor anymore. I haven't been a realtor for a few years. So when it came time to sell my mother's house, he did what every good twin brother does. He went to somebody else. Well, you don't live in Rhode Island. Blah, 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 right? So he goes to a friend of his, and this house is worth about $230,000, $240,000. Okay, that's just my guess. Again, he's right. I haven't sold in that area, but that's on the high side of what you're going to get for this house. Okay, so they came in and priced it at $290,000. You know why? They renovated it 3 years ago. And it's a fast market. Does this sound familiar to anybody? First of all, your renovations 3 years ago. Is that new renovations? No. Secondly, wasn't the greatest renovations. That's okay, but again, you price your own property. It's hard to do, right? Most importantly, they decided that they could get around here because it's a fast market. And I told them, don't put it on for that price. It's worth $230 to $240. I said, you put it on at $240. I said, if it's in the sweet spot, you're gonna get $245. You're gonna get more. But if you put it on at $290, it's not gonna happen. So, once again, guess what they did? Put it on at $290. So the house sat there, and then they started chasing the market. Meaning, well, we're gonna try it for a month. Anybody here heard that one before? We're gonna try it for a month. And I use the same script that I would expect all of you to use. What's the script we use when I say I'm gonna try it for a month? Oh, come on. Look, vast majority of the traffic that's going to see this house is going to see it in the first month. The longer the house sits on the market, the less the house is worth. If we don't get a ready, willing, and able buyer right away, we're going to have to take a drop one step below where we would have taken if we'd started at a better price. Took up the charts and everything. So once again, just like every good seller, my brother said, no. I, at that point, did that. Have fun. 3 months later, I asked my mother how she was doing with selling the house. No, nothing yet, but we're close. I said, what's the price? 3 months later, the price is going down to $260. I said, Ma, you're not there yet. Not there yet. 3 months after that, what's the price? $240. They got to where I told them 6 months too late. This is what we mean by chasing the market. You start at $290. Now you chased it down to $260. Now you finally got to where you should have been at point A. Guess what? Point A is now way over here. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, it's not worth $240 anymore. They just went pending for guess how much? Anybody? $225. Yeah. $225. Loss of $15,000 minimum. Well, I was going to say, exactly. No, she owns it, which is why she was willing to, quote, take that chance, you know, but still, I don't know if you guys have been through Rhode Island lately. We have something there called property taxes that'll just blow your mind, all right? It will just blow your mind. So the bottom line is, did this realtor and my brother do my mother any service by pricing her house at $290? Here's the thing, when you go in to do your market analysis, you have got to understand that the odds are you're delivering bad news. Because do you think that for 1 second my mother is the only person, or her son, my brother, are the only people who thought their house was worth more than it was? In fact, what's the first thing we teach you? If you're going to go sell your own house, what's the first thing you're told? Have someone else price it. Because we always think our house is better than the neighbors, just like every seller. Just like every seller, that's what we think. So, here's the thing. Here's the thing. My mother needed to sell. She needed to sell it, and eventually she just kept taking the drops until finally it sold, okay? So, when you are going to go do a CMA, you need to make sure of a couple of things. This is not a class on listing presentations. However, you need to understand, when you go on a listing presentation, it is your job, it is your requirement, your obligation to find out how motivated your seller is. Because here's the thing, with an unmotivated seller, how likely are you to get a realistic price? And if they're unmotivated and they don't give you a realistic price, do you think you're going to get that price drop? Probably not. And now, this listing, which is supposed to be revenue for you, becomes what? It becomes an expense.
Right.
It becomes an expense. So basically, I realized long time ago that I did not like getting listings if I couldn't get my price. I do business planning all the time, and one of the figures that you're supposed to be tracking for business planning is what percentage of the listings that you receive actually sold? Now, when you're in a fast market, that's easy, isn't it? Pretty much everything sells, right? Pretty much, you know, unless you're in that price range, right? Pretty much everything sells. However, when you're in a level market to a buyer's market, that can become a tough number to look at. When I was in the worst of buyer markets, okay, when a house could sit there for a year if it wasn't priced right, I was still selling 95% of my listings. I was selling 95%. I used to advertise that I was selling 95% of my listings at 98% of my asking price. You know why? I was really, really good at getting the right price. And if I didn't get the right price, guess what I did? Well, when I was new, I took it. I took it. Not because I was new and stupid, or, you know, naive, let's call it, right? Because it's not stupid. It's like, hey, look, I need a list. It was because I was new, and I knew I was going to build some experience, and I might get a buyer, and I had the time. So if you don't have a lot going on and you get offered an overpriced listing, by no means am I telling you not to take it. I'm not telling you that. However, I will tell you, once you start getting busy and time becomes a more valuable commodity than it is when you're not busy, you're going to save yourself a whole lot of effort by walking away sometimes. Because sometimes a seller, picture this. Picture my mother does not want to drop this much on price. The listing expires. Now, another realtor comes in. Hopefully it's going to be who? Me, because I'm the one who gave her the truth up front. You see what I'm saying? I can tell you about a dozen times where I did not get a listing initially going in for it because I couldn't come to price terms with the seller, where when it expired, I went back in and got that listing. Okay? Today, what I want to show you is how I did that. Now, so that there's no, I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea of what today is. I'm not going to come in here and teach you. I don't know your market. You do. So I can't come in here and teach you how much to adjust for a bedroom, how much to adjust for a garage. Okay? I'm not an appraiser, and if I tried to teach you that, I think I'd be outside of my area of expertise, and that could present problems, right? So I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is say, once you make your adjustments, I'm going to show you how to present it in a way to make sure that your seller is going to have a really, really hard time saying no to you on that price. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, in order to do that, we're going to go back to an old friend, something we haven't seen in years. It's called paper. Everybody remember this? This is paper, okay? Before we had to put everything on a computer, we had paper and things like that, okay? Works just like a monitor and a mouse. It's called paper and pen, and we're going to use it for this because I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. What we are doing here is a visual display. We're putting on a bit of a show. You all okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, you're putting on a bit of a show. Because here's the thing, it's really, really hard. Would you mind passing one for everybody, please? Actually, I need one too. Thank you. Roger didn't know he was going to be, part of the drill is he had to be my assistant. He didn't know that, so. So it's a double-edged sword knowing me. I come in and help him out, but he has to do all this stuff. So anywho, so basically, this looks complicated. Those of you who have seen it already, what do you think? You getting a little dizzy looking at all those boxes and lines? What's that? I didn't say that.
Oh, you didn't say anything.
Oh no, I said, are you getting dizzy? Those of you who have already seen it, are you getting a little dizzy looking at all those lines?
No.
Yeah? Well, you're supposed to. No, you're supposed to, because I made this look like this because I want it to look hard.
Oh, for the seller.
Yes, I need this seller. Hey guys, I need you to do me a favor, everybody. Just want to remember, I didn't go over my rules today, but remember, one of the biggest rules is no side conversations. A lot of it going on, and especially in something like this where there's a system going on, if you miss a piece, it's going to kind of gunk up the works and people can't hear around you and stuff like that. So if you don't mind, we're going to try to remember the texting, side conversations, and I didn't say it, so this is on me. No texting, no side conversations, no limiting beliefs, negative mindsets. Normally I have a whole big 10-minute presentation on that. I decided to spare you today because I didn't get coffee. I saw you. I saw you came in just at the right time. Thank you. All right.
I'm always the college. I'm sorry, I did it.
No problem. Okay, so basically, I made this piece of paper specifically to look hard. Because I want that seller to understand that you didn't just pull a price like Zillow does.
Right.
Ooh, did I say that out loud?
Louder.
Okay. You didn't just pull a price, okay? I want them to see that you worked at it. You're not going to work a whole lot more than you're working right now anyway. You're just going to show your work. You're going to show your work, and you're going to be able to go in there and explain how you came up with that price. And if you can explain it, and you can get them to agree with you every step of the way, guess what? It's really hard for them to say no when you say, so this is what we should sell at, right? Okay, because what's happening here is there's what's going on in their head, and then there is reality. We need a piece of paper to get reality, not their head, on the listing agreement. And the more it looks like we work, the more we can show, the easier it's going to be to do that. Okay? This is a double line entry system. It's a 2-line entry system. Okay? It's much easier than it looks. But before we can get too into this piece of paper, by the way, in case you didn't notice, you see how I keep snapping it? And you know what I'm doing, don't you? I don't want a nice, crisp, clean piece of paper being put down at the table. I need this to look like I've been carrying this thing around with me for hours, just going crazy trying to get this done. Okay, and again, I understand we're putting on a bit of a show, all right? And that's why I'm a little uncomfortable with that part of it, but believe me, it works. It works. You're not telling them anything different, you're just presenting it in a different way, okay? There's no bait and switch or anything, it's just, I just want it to look a certain way for myself, okay? Now, let's talk about CMAs. First of all, everybody here knows what a CMA is, right? You've all been here long enough to know what a CMA is. Okay, so basically the purpose of it is to look at the sales around the house, compare the houses that sold to your subject property, make adjustments and say if the house that sold down the street had what you have in it, it would have sold for blank. We all understand that, right? Now, let me ask you something. How many of you have done CMAs? How many of you have gone out and done a CMA? Now, did you go in there with a nice, fancy, full-color CMA and present it to them? It's good, doesn't it? Did you? It was Patrick, in case anybody missed it. Now let's all check our phones, because I don't know if I checked mine. I did. I'm good. Okay. So anyway, now you go in, you bound it, or you put it in some plastic, and it looked good. How many times did you reference it while you were at your listing appointment? The entire time. So did you show your adjustments in there? Yep. You put them in there? No? Okay, yes, I have a no. Okay? So basically, in general, most of the time, people do not even bother to put their adjustments into the CMA. They just let whatever program they have printed out, and then they flip and they say, here's the comparables that I use, and they go to the back and then they get the price that they're looking for, okay? I can tell you one time, this is the God's honest truth, I went to a listing appointment. I was in Rhode Island, I was on the coast, and this guy wanted to sell his house, and he wanted to buy a house 2 blocks further back. So he lived about 4 blocks from the water, and then 2 blocks behind him was a much bigger house that he wanted to move his family into because he had just had twins. So he wanted to sell his house, and he came in, and I did my CMA for him, and I showed him one of these. I showed him all of the numbers, and he told me that he was going to list with somebody from the RE/MAX office down the street. I said, okay. I said, do you mind if I ask you why? And he said, well, he's going to get me $25,000 more than you're going to get me. I said, really? I said, well, I mean, we did the numbers. They're right here. You know, what did I miss something? He goes, I don't know. He says, I said, do you have this CMA? And of course, it was a nice, beautiful CMA with all the papers and all, you know. And I looked through, and guess what he used for comparables? Well, yes. But he also used, first of all, he wasn't using solds. He was using everything in the area. And guess what house this person had the nerve to be using?
The one he wants to buy.
Bingo! The one he wanted to buy was being used as a comp. I flipped through, I saw the one he wanted to buy, and I said, isn't this the house you want to buy? And he said, yeah. And he wasn't surprised. Wow. He goes, I saw that. I said, well, and you know, now, I'm in a spot now. I had to diplomatically figure out how to say to him, if you don't want to live in this house because that one's better, why would they want to live in your house instead. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, how do I nicely say, you want to move out of this house to live in that one? So basically, they were comparing the house. That house was, I'm going to throw some numbers at it. I don't remember what they were. $250,000 was the house that he wanted to buy. His house was worth $225,000. The other realtor told him naturally $250,000 because that's how much he needed. That's in his head. That's what he needed to get. So he told him $250,000, and to support it, he used the house that he wanted to buy. And I said, look, if you want to leave this house to go to that house, why would you think that your house and that house are the same amount of money? Like, in other words, if I bring two buyers in, they look at your house and they look at that house. Even you don't want this one in that competition. Sometimes you have to just be that direct, right? Even, you know, in that competition, you were telling me you have chosen the other house, and you know what he said to me? Well, the realtor told me that that house is, this house is 2 blocks closer to the water, and that's worth $25,000. He never sold his house. Never sold his house. But you'd be amazed what people can believe. You'll be amazed what people will use for CMA. So if you don't go in there fully ready to defend your price, you are at the whim of, you're now competing with a realtor who is not necessarily looking out for the best interest of the seller. They're looking for the best interest of getting the listing. And that's a problem, because now, look, if we have two people come up to us, right? One of them says your house is worth $350,000. The other one says your house is worth $425,000. Which one are you more inclined to believe? 425. Of course, because the heart rules the mind, doesn't it?
Right.
The heart rules the mind, okay? Unless you can come in there with some facts and try to get them back down to earth, okay? Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't, but you at least need to take a shot at it. So when I left that guy's house, I said, listen, I said, here's the deal. I said, I won't list this house at $250,000. I said, I don't think I'm doing you any favors, you know? I said, more than welcome to go list with that RE/MAX agent, but here's the deal. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. At some point in time, that agent is going to come to you, and he's going to ask you for a price reduction. And he's going to probably want to go down to about $225,000. And I'm just going to ask you to do me one favor. Just remember that I'm the one who came to you with that price first. And if he asks you for that price reduction, I would ask you to say no to him, ask him for a release, and come and list it with me. Would that be fair? Because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and you don't have to worry about me again. But if I'm right, will you at least give me a second phone call, another shot at getting this listed? Yeah, of course, no problem. Never sold it, ever. Like, I mean, since I checked it. That was when that one bothered me. This is probably 12 years ago. I'm still talking about it, okay? Okay, because I went into a listing appointment a week earlier, maybe 2 weeks earlier, with one of my agents. She was a newer agent. I went in to help her out. She had a listing for $450,000. It had expired twice from 2 different agents. And now this third agent was going to be Denise, the girl who worked with me. And she wanted $450,000 for it. So Denise is like, can you come with me? Explain to her that if it didn't sell twice for $450,000, it's not going to. Okay. So I went with her. We did one of those. We proved everything out. And not to mention, you'd already failed twice at $450,000. 6 months with one agent, 6 months with another. So you can't say it was the time of year. It was an entire year that went by. This was another house on the water. So I went in feeling very good. The house was worth $400,000, by the way. So we went in, and guess what? Same RE/MAX agent. This was the first one. This is why I get so mad at the second one. Came in and told her that the house was worth $450,000. And I said again, show me where am I missing it? Did she give you a CMA? You know what she said? No. She sells so many houses in this area that she can look at a house, she can look at a neighborhood and tell you square feet, price per square foot, how much your house is worth. And she told me a square foot number, and then we did the math, and guess what it came out to? I said, $450,000. How about that? Right? It's amazing what people will believe. You see what I'm saying? Now this person, thankfully, gave her the listing. But 3 months later came back and gave it to Denise. And Denise got it sold for guess how much? $400,000. You know why? Was Denise a better realtor? No, Denise just came in with the right price. She's like, look, if you want to sell this, you're 0 for 3 now. Sell it. And it sold in a couple of weeks for $400,000. Okay? Everybody with me? All right. With that in mind, your job is difficult because there are real estate agents out there who the first thing they do when they're about to get a listing appointment, is the first thing they ask is, hey, Roger, how much do you think your house is worth? Or Roger, how much you need to get for your house? Oh, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to tell me that? Why do you think they're asking that question? First of all, how many of you do it? Some of you were probably taught to do that. Okay? So there are a lot of people who are taught, well, the first thing you do is ask them how much they want for the house, because if they want some unrealistic number, you don't want to waste your time. There is so much wrong with what I just said. Okay? Because number one, if you decide to ask them when you have the information and they don't, and they're wrong, you're supposed to just walk away? Really? That's what we're doing? You know why they're really asking for the price? So that they can doctor up some type of a CMA that supports that price. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, that agent went in, said to her, how much you want for this? How much you think the house is worth? I know this house is worth $450. You know, I think it probably is too, but let me go home and do some research on this, and I'll get back to you. And then that's when she pulls out her magic number, and they pull out whatever comps that are going to somewhat support it, whether they're really comps or not. Everybody with me on this? And you have to compete with that. So here's the first thing I want you to learn. When you are invited to do a CMA or to do a listing presentation, whichever it may be, to me, my CMA is my listing presentation. Okay? I do everything at the same time, right? I might go up to the house and look at it first, but I'm going to do my presentation all at once. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to say to them is this: listen, I'm looking forward to come over. I'm going to come over, have a look at your house, right? And maybe ask you a few questions, and then I'm going to go and do my research. Okay, I'm going to go do my research, then I'm going to come back in, I'm going to go over the results. Sound good? Okay, but here's the one thing I'm going to ask you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. Please do not tell me how much you need for the house, how much you want for the house, or how much someone else told you you're going to get for the house. Because I don't want that to be sitting in my mind when I'm doing the math. In other words, I don't want anything that's going to sway it in a positive or a negative way, okay? Because it's really important that we get the price right. And while we're at it, if you are calling any other realtors, and if they ask you, and some will, how much you think the house is worth, how much you want for it, don't tell them. Because it will influence their price. And the price is what the market will pay, not what you or I think it's worth or want it to be worth. Everybody with me on that? It's a really, really important first line. Now, if they've already called someone else and another person already told them $450,000, guess what? You have now put some doubt in their mind when that realtor shows up with a CMA supporting exactly $450,000. More importantly, though, if they say, excuse me, that's for you to tell me, I don't know, that's why I called you, now they're going to have to come in with a more legitimate CMA, hopefully. Hopefully. Everybody with me? You comfortable with that line? It's not an easy line to say, but believe me, it's a powerful one. It's powerful. Okay? Everybody good with that? Any questions up to this point? None? I'm checking the time, not because I'm bored. I just want to make sure I'm doing okay on time. Yes?
You'll probably answer this in a few minutes, but when a seller has an appraisal that's, say, a year old,
Yeah.
and then, they try and tell you that, I know this is what this house is worth, I have an appraisal. Or a seller wants to overprice the house, and try and explain it's not going to appraise.
Well, be careful saying it's not going to appraise.
Right.
Yeah, because, but that's not our, that's us overstepping our bounds. First of all, if somebody has a year-old appraisal, a couple of things you can tell them about appraisals. Number one, there's different types of appraisals out there. If this appraisal was done for a refi, that's completely different than an appraisal that's done for a purchase, right? And second, well, yeah.
What is that?
They don't need as much information for a refi. It's more of a check than an actual full. I mean, it can be a full appraisal. It would just depend, you know what I mean? But a lot of the time, if there's a lot of value in the house, they're just making sure that there's nothing that they don't know. They're basically sending the appraiser to look. You know what I'm saying? Hang on one sec. So, and secondly, a year-old appraisal isn't going to be looked at by anybody anyway, right? In other words, it's outdated. You know, it's kind of like saying if you had a carton of milk in the refrigerator for you, you're not going to drink it, are you? Well, you're no more likely to drink that cup of milk than the bank is to look at that year-old appraisal. It's too much time has lapsed. So, again, all you can do is tell them. You have to remember, when it comes to your CMA, just like anything else, all you can do is deliver the news. It's up to them if they're going to accept it or not, right? Yes?
Oh, I was just going to mention they work much harder, the appraisers, to justify the value to the purchase.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's a whole different type of appraisal, whole different type. They're not looking to see what somebody would buy it for. They just want to make sure that it's enough in there to protect their investment.
So using comps, you don't ever go back more than 6 months?
Only if you absolutely have to.
Absolutely have to.
If you absolutely have to, yeah. Yep.
Sometimes you have to.
Sometimes you do, yep.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to go further out than you want to, but it's got to be done. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so basically, here's what I want to do now. I want to just talk about starting your CMA. Again, I can't get into actual adjustments because, again, I'm not an appraiser and I don't work for KW, so it's not like I can say this is an in-house training. It's because it isn't, okay? So here's the deal. So first of all, when you go and start your CMA, how many of you are familiar with what's called a radius search in your MLS or a map search? How many of you are using that to do your CMA? You should always start there, right? Unless you're in a rural area, right? Unless you're in a rural area. Here's how I'm going to start my CMA. To me, my CMA, I'm going to start it off by trying to zero in as close to my subject property as I can. By the way, when I mean subject property, the house that I'm hoping to list, okay? I want to zero in as close to it as I can, and then I'm going to back out until I have at least 2 or 3 good sold properties. Why do actives and pendings not help you in a CMA, and why don't banks look at them?
Because you haven't sold.
Because I haven't sold. I can list a house, I can have everybody in my neighborhood list the house for $500,000, right? They're only worth $250. You know what I'm saying? But hey guys, do me a favor. Let's all list our houses for $500,000. You know what I mean? And now we got that value. Doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. So you need at least 2 good sold properties. Sometimes you might need 3. And if you're in a rural area or somewhere that's really odd, you might only have 1. Sometimes you really don't have any. Okay, but remember, it's okay. We're not appraisers. We're not appraisers, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a map search. Now, there's 2 types of map searches in most MLSs. I'm not sure how MLS PIN works, okay? But basically, usually you have 2 types. You have one where you can literally do a polygon search. Anybody know what that is? Mm-hmm. Okay? And the polygon search is nice because if you know the neighborhood, if you specifically know the neighborhood, you can zoom in and draw a polygon around the streets that are actually part of that neighborhood, okay? That's the ideal way to do it. That's the ideal way to do it because where I used to work, there was a neighborhood, literally, God's honest truth, I could do a radius search around the house, like, the circle, just making it bigger, okay? And in a quarter of a mile search, I would have $1 million houses and $150,000 houses. So a radius search is generally not the way to go, right? Unless, the whole area is the same, okay? So basically, I'm going to start in on a polygon search so I can map out my neighborhood. What if you don't know the neighborhood? Do you think if you get in your car, when you're going to go look at this house anyway, and drive around, do you think you can figure out some borders as to when the neighborhood starts to change? Of course you can, okay? A lot of us just don't like to do that. You're driving around, you're looking at the street number, you say, all right, it's starting to change now. You mark the street that you're on, you go back to the map, you draw your polygon. Okay, if you can't do that, you can use a radius search, and you're going to be able to see. You're going to see, hey, radius search isn't going to work here because I have $1 million properties and $100,000 properties within this circle. That's not going to work, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my map search in there. The next thing that I'm going to do is if my subject property has 3 bedrooms, I'm going to put in 3 bedrooms. If it has 1.5 bathrooms, I'm going to put in 1.5 bathrooms. If it's 2,500 feet, 2,500 square feet. I'm going to put in maybe, I don't know, 2,200 to 2,700 square feet. I'm going to make it a real close search. Real close search. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say date status changed. Status change date. I'm going to go back no more than 6 months, because I don't need to be seeing houses that sold 3 years ago, right? And then I'm going to say a quick prayer, and then I'm going to hit search. And if I get something, it's going to be probably my best comp. Would you agree? I mean, if I'm that zeroed in and I get a result, that's my first and most important comp, right? Yes.
And you include style, right? Ranch versus colonial.
Not at that point in time.
No.
No, I don't. You can, but now you can. I'm not going to tell you not to, but it's probably going to be one of the first things that you're going to have to pull out of there when we start to broaden our search. Okay, but you can.
You don't want to compare a split to
Again,
Victorian.
That's right.
I don't want to. No, I don't want to. But at least I need a starting point. Right. Exactly. So basically, what I'm going to do now, and we'll talk more about that when we actually get to this piece of paper here. So I'm going to, if I get one, now here, let's say I don't get one, or I only get one. Okay? Now I need to start to zoom out my search. So what I'm going to do is, now I'm going to start backing things off. Maybe I'll expand the area a little bit. Maybe I'll say 3 or 4 bedrooms. Maybe I'll take the square footage and open that up a little bit more. Things like that, okay? I'm just going to start to ease out until I get those couple of sold that I need. Everybody understand how I'm doing this? I can't tell you specifically how to do it because every neighborhood's different. Every neighborhood's different, okay? Most important, the thing that you don't want to change until you have to is what? The map search. Why? Location, location, location. That's why. Location, 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 okay? I cannot stop comparing one neighborhood to another neighborhood when those two neighborhoods aren't very similar. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to try to keep it as close on the map as I can. I'm going to move out a little bit more on bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, garage, things like that. And then as I have to expand my map, I will. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? And again, sometimes you're still not going to get a good CMA. You're just not. Yes?
I'm sorry for so many questions.
No problem.
Do you ever use assessed value?
I'm sorry?
Do you ever use
Absolutely
the
not.
assessed value?
Everybody get that? Do you ever use the assessed value? Absolutely not. Like an appraisal, and I know a lot of, and again, it's something a lot of realtors will do. When I lived in Alabama, they lived by the assessed value. I'm like, what are you doing? The assessed value has nothing to do with how much a home is worth. It has to do, it's a tax formula worked backwards. The town says we need to collect this much money in taxes, therefore that house needs to be worth this much for us to hit this number.
So do you ever have sellers point that out to you?
Of course, and I tell them exactly what I just told you.
Yeah.
Yep. And I tell them, if you're looking at your assessed value,
My assessed value.
yeah, if you're looking at your assessed value, right, if your assessed value is higher than the house is worth, you should probably get the heck out of that town. Okay? That's not a good thing to happen. Yeah, that's not a good thing to happen. Oh, yeah, your assessed value has nothing to do with how much your house will sell for. It has to do with how much the town is going to tax you to hit a number that they predetermined before they assessed your house. Period. Okay? So, and again, it's amazing how many objections can come up when people, when we're doing the CMA, isn't it funny? They become the salesperson. They're trying to sell us on their price. Right? Yeah, that's when they start saying things like, yeah, but look at the molding I have in this house. Really? You want me to look at the molding you have in this house? Seriously? Okay. Yeah, not going to work. All right. So basically, I'm eventually going to keep pulling out of my search until I have 2 or 3 sold properties. Make sense? I will also pull a couple of actives, and I might pull a pending or 2. Why? Because it's always good to look at the competition. The more information you have, the better off you are. For example, I'm going to jump subjects for a second. You ever go knock on a FSBO's door? You knock on their door, and they say to you, oh, how much did the house down the street sell for? And you don't know. If you're going to go knock on a FSBO or an expired's door, you better pull that neighborhood before you go. You better pull it. Even if you don't know it by heart, you can say, I'm not sure, let me look. 615,000. Well, they were asking 7. Yeah, I know. I know, they got 615. Like my mother's neighbor, guess what he probably thinks right now? Hey, she was asking 290 and it sold. Do you think he's thinking 225? What do you think he's thinking? 280, 285? You see what I'm saying? You gotta be careful. And what do people do? People who are thinking of selling their house. The neighbor will always tell you how much they listed their house for. They never come back and tell you that they took 3 price drops and then took a beating on that last price drop. So most people have an inflated number in their mind. And like you said, some people use square footage, some people use the assessed value, it's amazing what people will come up with their prices. Just amazing. So we have to be prepared for that. And the way we do it is with information. So now you're going to take your 3 solds, your couple of actives, and maybe your 1 or 2 pendings, and you're going to take out your, hopefully by now, your piece of paper looks about like this at this point, okay? And this is your worksheet. You are going to fill out a worksheet. Now the top line on this, actually the second line where it says subject property, can everybody see that? Second line says, by the way, you can make this bigger or smaller, okay? It says subject property. What I'm going to put in there is the year that the house was built. Let's just say the house was built in 2000. So just put 2000 in that first box. Okay, if you want. You don't have to do it, but if you want to, you can. Okay? Type, style of home. Okay, type, style, whatever you want to make that. You'll have an Excel file. You can change that to whatever you want it to be. Let's just say that it's a ranch. Number of bedrooms. Subject property has 3. Bathrooms, 2. Basement, full unfinished. Now where I lived, when I used to use this sheet, sewer was important. Because if it was sewer, septic, and we also had the old cesspool. So there was big adjustments going on, okay? Now that may or may not be important in your area. If it isn't, don't worry about it. You can put something else in that box or eliminate that box altogether, okay? So for this case, I'm just going to say public. Okay? Square footage. This house has, let's see, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. I'm going to say about 1,700 square feet. Lot size, 10,000. Condition. This is my wild card. I have 2 wild cards. Sometimes, you ever notice, houses just don't comp and you have to come up with a reason why. Condition and style. Where we do that, generally, okay? Now, condition, I'm going to leave that blank, okay? Now, days on market, list price, obviously I don't have any of that because this house hasn't been listed yet. Everybody with me? Okay. Now, I'm going to go, the next section, it says in bold letters, it says sold, and then right underneath that is a blank, and then right underneath that is the word adjustment. Everybody with me? So that blank under the word sold is where you write in the address of your best comp. Okay, so let's just say my best comp is 123 Smith Street. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run across and I'm going to fill out these same questions using the comparable property. Okay, so let's just say that this house I like to keep for learning purposes. I'm going to keep it so that it's an easy adjustment for us. Okay, there's no sense in starting with something advanced. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to say that this house was built in 2002. So to the right of 123 Smith Street, I'm going to write 2002 in that column for year built, okay? Then for type, let's just say that this one is a cape. Okay, it's a cape. Number of bedrooms, 4. Number of bathrooms, 1.5. That's probably unrealistic, but that's okay. We're going to go with it anyway. Basement, full, unfinished. Sewer. If mine's on sewer, the odds are they're on sewer too, usually. Okay, so I'm going to say public. Square footage, I'm going to say 1,800 square feet. Lot size, let's say 9,500. Condition, how do I know the condition? Do I? Not always, but sometimes if I just read the description, look at the pictures, I can see this house needs help. I'm going to say that this house was in good shape from what I could see though, okay? So I'm just going to put good. Days on market, it's 90. List price, that should say original list price. Because that's the price that matters most to the seller, okay? Original list price, let's say it was 300,000. The low, I'm sorry?
Sorry, do you ever look at those that were not sold on MLS?
We'll get there. We're not there yet, hang on. Low price, in other words, what is it listed at? What's the lowest list price? So you look at the history, and it was listed at 300, then it went down to 290, then it went to 280. What was the lowest price it was listed at? Let's say it was listed at 280. Okay? Now, the most important number, sold price. Because the odds are the seller of your subject property has no idea what that house down the street sold for, but I'll guarantee you they knew that it was listed at 300, don't they?
Yeah.
That's probably what got in their head, hey, we should sell. If that piece of is worth 300, imagine what ours is worth. You know what I'm saying? That's how it happens a lot of the time, right? So let's just say that this one sold for 275. Everybody with me?
Yes.
You can now go in and fill out your second and your third sold property. Okay, we're not going to do that for sake of time. It's just basically taking it right off of the MLS. Now, once I'm done with that, now I'm going to go down about almost halfway down the page. It says active, because like I said, you can take one or two actives if, and only if, it's going to support the news that you have to deliver. Because remember, make no mistake about it, the odds are you're coming in there with bad news, and you're going to need to be able to support it. So here's what I'm going to do. Before you go worrying about your actives and your pendings, okay, I want you to make sure that you have a good idea of what this house should sell for. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
So let's just say that you put in a couple of solds. Again, I'm not going to bother. We're just doing this as an example. Now you need to do your adjusting. That's what line 2 is. That line that says adjustment. That's where you're going to put in your pluses and your minuses. Okay? That's where you're going to put in your pluses and your minuses. So, first of all, one house was built, my subject property was built in the year 2000. My comparable was built in 2002. Are we doing an adjustment for that? I wouldn't either. I would not either. So I'm just going to draw a horizontal line saying no adjustment. Now, does your seller think she deserves an adjustment for that? Probably. This is where you have to come in and explain to them, listen, we're focusing on the things that matter to the bank. We're not going to get wrapped up in the little things here, because here's what I found in my X amount of years of selling real estate. Here's what I found. All those little things, you have a little better this, they have a little better that. Your yard's a little bigger, you know, their living room's a little bit bigger. They, you know what I mean? Blah, 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 okay? These things tend to work themselves out. We need to focus on the big things, because that is what the bank is going to be looking at. Fair enough? Always make them agree with you, because later we're going to go back to all of this. Okay? All right. So basically, yeah, 2 years is not going to be worth it. Now, I'm going to hold off. I'm going to hold off on deciding how much I'm going to adjust for that difference in style. Ranch versus Cape. Now, let me ask you all this. Who thinks a ranch is worth more than a Cape? Raise your hands. Who thinks a Cape is worth more than a ranch? It's very much a personal preference. I personally would much rather have a ranch than a Cape. That's just me personally. That's just me personally, okay? Now, there are other people like to have the bedrooms upstairs maybe, kids downstairs, you know, something like that. Not me. So, ranch, Cape, not a huge difference, right? What about colonial versus Cape?
Much different.
Much different, okay? Colonial is going to be worth more than a Cape is, right? What about colonial versus ranch? More. Colonial. How about Victorian versus Cape? Depends on the Victorian, doesn't it? Depends on the Victorian. What's that?
And the molding.
And the molding, that's right. That molding in there. That's right. All right. So again, it's kind of, that's why we can use this as a wild card. We can play it up or we can play it down as we need to. You see what I'm saying? All right, so let's move on. Bedrooms. All right, I have a 3-bedroom house. But the one that sold had 4 bedrooms. Now, it's up to you, and I can't do this for you, to determine how much is the difference between a 3-bedroom house and a 4-bedroom house. How much is that extra bedroom worth?
Depends on the price point.
Exactly, depends on the price point. So let's just say I'm looking at this house probably, when I walked in, I'm looking at this house, I'm saying to myself, this house is worth about $250. That was what was going on in my mind. So you guys are gonna have to tell me this number. The difference, by the way, if a house has 3 bedrooms versus 4 bedrooms, or a house has 2 bedrooms versus 3 bedrooms, do you think that's the same adjustment?
No.
Not at all. How come?
2 is not very sellable. Right?
Bingo, 2 is not very sellable. So here's the thing. Well, here's the thing. I don't care how you adjust this stuff out, because in your mind, you already kind of know how much this house is going to be valued at, because we're not appraisers. Our adjustments are there to, just basically keep us in the ballpark, right? So what you have to make sure is that whatever adjustments you make, you do consistently. So what I always do on here, on the bottom, where that says comments, I make a key. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 3 to 4 bedroom equals X amount of dollars. 2 to 3 bedrooms equals X amount of dollars. So, and again, I'm just using random numbers here. Let's just say the difference, in your opinion, the adjustment value of 3 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms is, what's that? 15, 10, I'm thinking more along the lines of 10, so I'm just going to go with 10. I like easy math anyway. I'm going to say is 10K. See, I just wrote on the bottom, 3 to 4 is 10K. 2 to 3 is how much?
15.
That's a much bigger difference, right? 2 to 3 bed equals 15K. Fine, whatever you want to put. Everybody with me? I'm writing it down. Why? Because as I go through all of my comps, I want to make sure the only way that I can get hurt using this system is if my seller catches me being inconsistent. Then I just lost all validity in me and my system. Okay, also, I want them to know that these numbers came from somewhere.
Right.
Okay, so basically I have a 3-bedroom home, okay, that I want to sell. The comparable was a 4-bedroom home. So am I adjusting up or down?
Down.
I'm adjusting down. Here's the thing that for some reason that confuses a lot of people, okay? Remember, this house already sold. So if this house, if my property doesn't have it, I'm going to deduct. If my property does have it, I'm going to add. Okay? Everybody with me on that? All right? So basically, because it's a 3-bedroom home versus a 4-bedroom home, I'm going to go down. So under that adjustment under bedroom, I'm going to put minus 10K. By the way, I don't want you writing too neat. And don't be afraid to cross out if you have to. Draw lines and take notes if you need to. Okay? Next, I have a difference in bathrooms. Again, let's go back down to my key. I'm going to say 1 bath. The adjustment would be, and for a half a bath, the adjustment would be. And again, I'm just going to throw random numbers out. I'm going to say 15 and 10. Okay? 15,000 for a full bath and 10 for a half. Don't hold me to these numbers. I'm just doing, example purposes only. Okay? So basically, the house that I have has 2 bathrooms. The subject property only has 1.5. So are we adding or subtracting? We're adding, right? Because my house has something that one doesn't. So I'm adding. And how much am I adding for a half a bath? 10K. Now, they both have the same basement. They both have public sewer. Now, I only have a 100 square foot difference. Now, your seller is going to say to you, 100 square feet is almost a room, isn't it? Or in some cases, it is a room, right? Didn't we already adjust for that extra bedroom? We're not going to adjust twice.
Right.
Everybody with me on that? We're not adjusting twice. Okay? So I'm going to tell them, no adjustment, because you already got that 100 square foot adjustment when we adjusted for the bedroom that they have that you don't. Okay? Lot size, 10,000 and 9,000. Anybody adjusting for that?
No.
Yeah. Well.
I'm probably not.
Yeah.
I'm probably not.
It depends on the code, if it's a ranch and.
On the code?
On the building codes in the area.
What would that have to do with my
Well,
pricing adjustment?
If it's a ranch
Yeah.
and it's a tear down, then if it's over a 10,000 square foot lot, then the second floor could be added.
If it's a tear down?
If it's under a 10,000 square.
Okay,
foot
if it's a tear down, if you're basically pricing it as a lot, then lot price is going to be important. But let's assume that this is not a tear down. okay? But yeah, if you're pricing this more for a lot, then obviously that's gonna become the most important column on the paper.
Right.
But for right now, I don't really wanna adjust for that. Now, I will make an adjustment for land if my 10,000 square feet is a nice pristine field, and their 9,000 feet is hills and rocks and brush. I might take an adjustment there, okay? Let's, for the heck of it, just for the heck of it, say that their lot has just a beautiful flat yard, and ours is rocky and hilly and not really usable. Everybody with me? Everybody with me on that? Again, you need to determine. I can't tell you how I would do this because I'm not an appraiser. You guys would have to come up with a value on how much of their land is usable and how much of their land isn't usable. Now, one of the ways you can do this is if you can find a vacant lot in that comparable area and get a square foot price for the lot. Okay? Say that again?
Unlikely, you know.
Well, we are.
You never know. That's what I'm saying. That's one way that you can do it. Otherwise, again, you have to just basically back into your price, which is honestly, it's what we're doing here. We're backing into the price that we have in our head. That's what we're doing here, okay? That's what we all do. So now I know that I want this house priced at about 250 grand, because I know that's what I'm going to sell this for. Okay? Now, what's happening, we have a couple of things that we have to consider here. Now, first of all, I haven't done condition yet, all right? But basically, I still have this lot thing. And now I'm going to say that their 9,000 square foot lot and my 10,000 square foot lot are not the same. Their 9,000 square foot lot is in, their 9,000 square foot lot's in great shape. It's nice and flat. It's usable. You know, maybe there's a fence around it. You know, it's a yard, right? Mine is not really a yard. Mine's not really a yard.
How about yours can have a wetland behind it?
I'm sorry?
Yours has a wetland.
Maybe not wetland. No, that's a whole other ball game. Mine is rocky, hilly, loaded with brush. Okay, maybe there's like a little patch of yard, for the kids to play maybe. But other than that, it's just basically just a mess back there. What's that worth to you? One way you can do it, like I said, is if you can find a vacant lot and you can do square footage. Another way that you can do it might be to maybe consult a landscaper and say, what would it cost to get this? It's going to be up there, isn't it?
20K.
I'm sorry?
20.
Okay, we can put, again, it's totally up to you. I'm going to use 20K, okay? I'm going to say 20K. So I'm going to put minus 20K. And now I need to make a note to myself because somebody just looking at that piece of paper thinks, I just made a $20,000 adjustment for 1,000 square foot difference. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to circle that 20K and draw a line all the way up to the right or left or down bottom somewhere, and I'm going to write in landscaping adjustment, something like that. So that when I'm going through this with my customer, they're not going to think that I just made a $20,000 adjustment over 1,000 square feet. Everybody with me? So I'm just going to put in landscaping adjustment. Okay? Condition. Now let's have a look. Now I'm going to stop right here and say, all right, where am I at? This house sold for 275 grand. Now let's look at my adjustments, right? So basically, I started at 275, but I'm going to subtract 10,000. So now that house is only worth 265, right? The adjustment's 265. But then I'm going to add 10,000. I'm back up to 275, right? Now I'm going to subtract 20,000, which puts me at 255. Where am I looking to be? 250. Where can I find my other $5,000?
A condition.
Or better than condition, type. Type. Everybody with me? What if it's right where I want it to be? Do I have to adjust for either? No, because here's the thing. By the way, the reason I asked you who prefers a cape to who prefers a ranch, it was pretty much a 50-50 split. Pretty much a 50, some of you prefer a cape, some of you prefer a ranch. It's just in the eye of the buyer. One is not necessarily better than the other, but if you need that 5K, I would much rather walk up to them and say, look, you know what? We're going to do a $5,000 adjustment because their house is a cape and yours is a ranch, than saying their house is $5,000 better condition than yours. That's not an easy conversation to have. You can do it that way. Now, here's the thing. If I was going to give them $5,000, say, look, your house is in better shape, So I'm gonna subtract 5 grand, then I would say that, but if I don't have to say condition, I'm not gonna. Stay away from it if you can. That's why I saved condition and style for last. Everybody with me on this? Like I said, one of the things about being a realtor is you are not an appraiser. Okay, you're going in with your idea of a price and you're making sure reasonable adjustments support your thought. Everybody with me on that? When you have to show every line of it, sometimes, like I said, would you rather say condition or price? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to go down to my key because I want to make sure if I made this adjustment once, I'm going to have to keep making it. So I'm going to say Cape to Ranch, $5,000. Colonial to Ranch, and again, I'm making numbers up here, $20,000. I'm totally making numbers up, and I'm going to put whatever is needed in my key so that I'm always going to be consistent as I work down this sheet. This making sense to everybody?
What if they ask you, where did you get these numbers? Do you tell them the stats prove it? I mean,
No,
you just make up
this is the
something?
research that I've done.
Okay.
The research that I've done, okay, indicate to me that this is roughly what these adjustments will come from. Okay, it's a good question, very good question. If you have stats, obviously tell them that's where you got the stats from, okay? All right, so now, so I'm gonna put, under ranch, I'm gonna put minus 5K, right? Minus $5,000, right? Now, all the way to the right, where it says adjusted price, I'm gonna put in my adjusted price of $250,000. Everybody with me? So I added my additions, I subtracted out my subtractions, and then all the way to the right where it says adjusted price, on that adjustment line, I put in my adjusted price. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do that with each of your subject properties. Now again, I'm not going to sit here and say write in 3 of them and just keep doing it, okay? Once you're done, now you say, all right, look, I have a bunch of $250,000 properties. I got this house. I can pretty much show her or him that this house is worth about 250 grand. About. Okay? Now I can go to my actives and my pendings to try to help me support my price. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and find a house that's similar, that's active, that's been on the market for as long as possible, and I'm going to put that one on there. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to go grab an active and I'm going to do the exact same thing, except obviously I can't put in prices and I can't put in adjustments, okay, like because I don't have a sold price to adjust to. You see what I'm saying? But I can just go in there and say, look, we have this house, the house at 456 Smith Street. As you can see, we would be adjusting about $25,000 to the good for you, right? So in other words, making your house worth about $250, right? And again, this one's at $275, and it's been on the market for 160 days. So here's what we do know. So again, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I cannot compare, I can't get you a price for your house based on 456 Smith Street, but I can tell you it's not $275. I can't tell you what your price is, but I can tell you what your price isn't. Now, pendings. Be careful if you're going to put pendings on here. Be very, very careful if you're going to put pendings on here. Because here's the thing. You may find a house, when my mother sold her house for $225, it was listed at $240. So people are going to think it must have sold right around $240. And remember, we don't know until it sells. So you're going to go in there and say, look, this one's only going to sell for about $240. That one might have only sold for $225. Or it could have gone the other way. Maybe at $240 it caused a bidding war and it sold for $250. Be very, very careful what your pendings are. What I would do, if I could use a pending to complement my active, I will. What do you mean, Greg? What I mean is this. If I have a similar house that's active and it's priced higher than I want, right? I'm going to show them that, and I'm going to show them how long it's been on the market. And then, if I find one that's priced like $240, $250, and it's pending, I'm going to say, look at this. We know that $275 didn't get an offer, but look, this one's priced at $250. Now, I don't know how much it sold for, but it's pending. So that's closer to where we need to be than this is. You see what I'm saying? All you can do, I hate to tell you this, all you can do is go in and show them what you have. Now what I do is I take all of them, I'm going to have, like I said, 3 solds down here. I'm going to have my notes, I have my key, I'm gonna have maybe one or two active, an active and a pending, something like that. I'm gonna staple the MLS sheets. I'm gonna staple them to this piece of paper, which I want looking as ratty as possible. I mean, I want it to look like you spent hours on this, okay? And then what I'm going to do is, I'm also going to prepare, thank you, sir. I'm also going to prepare a fancy, nice looking, full color CMA that goes in a binder. And I'm going to show up at their house with both. Now, first of all, are there any questions on this piece of paper? How we use it and why we use it? And believe me, you can do this in about 15 minutes. I'm not adding a whole lot to your prep work, okay? But this will make a night and day difference. Night and day difference when you go to present. Yes?
At the bottom where you have off market, do you sometimes present like expired?
Yeah, I do. If I see expireds that are, like, let's just say I know the seller wants more, and I see a bunch of expireds at that higher price, I will absolutely show the off market. Thank you, I forgot to mention that. I will only show off market, pending or active to support my price. I will only support them to, I will only show them to support my price. Do you have a question?
Well, just more of a comment.
Mhm.
I've called agents that have the pendings, and I've never had one tell me no.
No what?
No, I'm not gonna tell you what it sold for.
Really?
Yeah, I've called and asked.
Yikes.
I call all the time.
Yeah.
That's confidential.
They tell you, yeah.
Not always.
No,
but
they don't tell you.
Often I do. I ask,
I
can you
do.
tell me, is it a strong offer?
Mm.
I'll come right
So
up
you
there.
don't put them on the hot seat.
I still wouldn't put that in a CMA.
I do.
I still wouldn't put that in a CMA. First of all, I mean, unless they have the seller's written permission, hopefully you all know not to do that, right?
Yeah.
You know, what do you have fiduciary duties?
Yeah.
You know,
We never do that. But.
Right?
again,
Confidentiality is the first one, right? That sucker's not sold yet. Why can that be a problem? If you disclose the pending price to another realtor, why is that a confidentiality problem? Who knows?
because if it falls apart and the house comes back on the market, that is.
I now know how much they're willing to sell it for, that's right.
Not good.
So do not do that, okay?
I've called agents and asked them what the offer price was, and they've given it to me.
Again, here's the thing, let me explain, hold on, just remember one thing.
Wow.
First of all, two things. First of all, if the seller gave the listing agent permission, it's fine. That's first. Second of all, just like you said, it doesn't hurt to ask. Your job is to have loyalty to your client. If that other agent's going to go giving up confidential information, it's your obligation to take it and use it to your client's advantage, okay? So, you know, it doesn't, like you just said, it doesn't hurt to ask, but again, if anybody's asking you, pump the brakes, check with your broker as to how you should proceed. Fair enough? Okay, but I think you all know how to proceed on that. All right, so again, I'm going to use everything other than sold just to defend against the objections that I know are coming. Well, my neighbor had his house for $275. Yeah, I know, he did. Look, it was on the market for 160 days and it still hasn't sold. You see what I'm saying? Well, you know, there was a house down the street, you know, that a few months ago, you know, that was like $275 too. I think they sold that one. No, actually, that one expired, or that one was pulled off the market by the seller. I have it right down here. You see what I'm saying? Go with your information, because they're going to turn into the salesperson, not you. And you better be prepared for that onslaught of objections. Because here's what we're doing. Here's what we're setting up to do. We're going to go to the home with our raggedy piece of paper with all the MLS sheets, and I might have notes, and I might have things circled on it, I might have pictures. Now what I do, when I do this, I go all out. I used to go all out. I would print the MLS sheet, I printed the history page, and I printed all of the pictures. And I stapled them together, and I had my highlight marker and my pen. Yeah.
It's gotta be that thick.
Yeah, it'd be up there. I mean, it wasn't that thick, but, you know, I mean, I only had about 6 or 7 properties with me, so, you know, I didn't take the whole neighborhood. But I would take, even the ones that weren't on the CMA, like the older ones, by the way, it does not hurt to bring listings that are 1 year to 2 years old. You know why? In the mind of the seller, that just happened. That they sold months ago. No, actually, they sold 1.5 years ago. Look. Now, what I do is, here's what I used to do. Before I went into the house, after I finished this, I would print the last 2 years worth of sales, actives, pendings, and off market. Now, I didn't print the whole sheet. I just printed the detail, the one line, what do we call that?
Yeah.
The results page. I didn't print all of that for all of them, but I brought the, so if they question, well, listen, my neighbor sold his house about just under a year ago. Why didn't you bring me that one? It was just under 6 months ago. And I'll look at, what's your neighbor's address? What house is it? Is it this house? Is it 123 Smith Street? You know, is it 456 Smith Street? Whatever. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that was a year and a half ago. And it actually sold for $240. He originally asked $260, $270, but he got $240. You see what I'm saying? You got to go in there prepared. Because remember, here's the thing. This is the time. You're the expert. If you don't go in there acting like the expert, you're the one with the information. They don't have the info. You do. You do. Which is why, to me, it blows my mind when a realtor walks up to a seller and says, how much do you think your house is worth? How much you want to get for your house? How are they supposed to know? They have an idea. They have an idea, but they don't know. Okay? You need to go in there with the facts. Now, here's the other reason I don't want you asking them. Because you are going to go in there. Now, I'm going to look at this two ways. Let's just say you walk into this house and you say you know that they think this house is worth $300,000. You know it's worth $250. That is not going to be an easy conversation for you, is it? It's going to be a very difficult conversation. In fact, most people would wimp out and do what? Raise their CMA to about $275. Now, did you just help your seller by doing that? Not at all. Again, here's the example I always give. Let's just say that you're a doctor. You're a heart doctor. And a person comes in and you look and you do your examination like, whoa, if this guy doesn't get to the hospital really soon, his heart's going to explode. Are you doing, but oh God, I don't want to tell them that. I hate to make them feel bad. That's what we're doing. When they think the house is worth $300 and we go and raise the value, we are doing the financial equivalent of that to them. We're not helping them. We're not helping them. Now, do you want a doctor who's going to be nice to you and spare your feelings and not tell you to get your butt to the hospital? Or do you want the doctor who's going to say, you want to live? You need to go to the hospital right now. Which doctor would you prefer to have? Which realtor would you prefer to have? The one telling you the truth. Even if it's hard to swallow. Even if the truth is hard to swallow. But here's the thing. If I don't know that you think this house is worth $300,000, this is good, because here's the problem. When you come to me and you say, Greg, I think my house is worth $300,000, and then I come in and I go through all of this, guess what they're doing with me the whole time? Arguing with me, because they don't want to be wrong. They feel stupid if they're wrong. They feel bad, right? And most people, mostly guys, will never admit to being wrong. No matter how much you prove it, they're not going to admit it. Right? So now let's just say the customer thinks the house is worth $300,000, but he hasn't told me he thinks that. Hasn't told me. I go through the sheet with him. And I say to him, so basically, this shows, as you can see, based on these comps, this house is worth about $250,000. Now let me ask you, how much do you think your house is worth? Because he never said $300,000 to me, guess what he's going to say to me? I was thinking more. I was thinking like $275. Let him come down, not you go up. You see what I'm saying? Everybody with me on that? There's a big dynamic there's a big difference there. There's a huge change in what's happening there, because again, if I am thinking my house is worth $300,000, and you say to me, Greg, how much do you think your house is worth? I think my house is worth $300,000. Well, you're wrong. It's worth $250,000. And I don't say it that way, but I show it to them in lines. Now he's going to defend his $300,000 price, isn't he?
Yes.
Because that's what people do. We don't like to be wrong. We don't like to be wrong, okay? Nobody likes to be wrong. So they're going to defend that price, and then basically, what are they going to do? Did you win? Did you win by proving them wrong? No, because they're never going to admit that you proved them wrong. They're going to go and hire that lady from Remax who was, just jacking up the prices to what they wanted, right? That's who's going to get the listing. But if he never had to say $300,000 to me, I guess, well, I thought it was worth a little bit more than that, but yeah, okay, I can see it. You see what I'm saying? Because here's what you're going to do. You're going to walk into the house, you're going to sit down, you're going to say, so basically, here's a CMA, nice, fancy, pretty one. Here you go. You can have that. That's good reading for after I've gone. I'm going to work off of this. And I whip out my busted up old piece of paper with notes all over it, a stack of paper stapled to the back of it. I'm going to say, that's the end result. That looks pretty and nice, but I want you to see where I came up with my price. By the way, did other realtors show you something like this? No? Oh, interesting. Okay, and that's all. I just wanted to say anything bad. Interesting is not a bad thing, right? It's just interesting, that's all. So anyway, so basically my wonderful future client, okay, let's have a look at what this is. I know it looks a little complicated. I just want you to focus on one line though, so don't worry about it, okay? So first of all, here's your property. I'm going to confirm that everything I wrote in my top lines are right. You have 3 bedrooms, you have 2 bathrooms, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Great. Now let's have a look. This house right here, 123 Smith Street, it sold. Sold within the last 6 months. And this one has this, and this, and this, and this. Now here's the adjustment for each of these things. I'm going to show them the adjustment. And I know that my adjustments are going to be the same all the way down the page because I have a key down here, okay? And then when I get to them, I'm going to say, look, so basically because my experience in real estate tells me in a neighborhood like this, 3 bedrooms versus 4 bedrooms is a difference of about $10,000. You with me on that, Mr. Seller? Yeah, great, okay. Now we're going to adjust for this. Now they have the landscaping, blah, 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 blah. If you look at how much it would cost to get these 2 yards to be even, it's going to be about a $20,000 difference. Yeah, you with me? And I know that's a tough one, but hey, it is what it is, right? Great. Boom, we get them agreeing with us the whole way. Every time you finish an adjustment, you get confirmation that they understand what you're saying, okay? At the end, you say, so basically, if this house, if this house had everything that your house has, it would have sold for $250,000. Makes your house worth, according to this one, $250,000. Make sense? Yes, great, okay. Let's go on to the next one, and then the next one. So basically, based on these 3, we can see that we're looking at a low end of about $240,000 to a high end of about $255,000. Now, Mr. Seller, now that I've done that and shown you where I came up with my price, now and only now am I going to ask you, just out of curiosity, what were your thoughts? How much were you thinking this house was worth? By asking after he knows my price, he can't look bad. He can't look like, oh man, I feel so stupid. I said $300,000, it's worth $250,000. Oh man, right? He doesn't have to say that. Like I said, he might say, I was thinking about $275,000, but I'd much rather be handling a $25,000 objection than a $50,000 objection, wouldn't you? And when he says, well, I thought it was worth about $275,000, you know what I'm going to say? He says, I wish I could get you that. But as you can see, it's not here. It's not here. Everybody with me on this? Yep. Whereas if we did it the other way and he told me it was worth $300,000, I have 2 options. I can either give him a CMA that shows $275,000 to $300,000 to try to just get the listing, which I don't want you doing, or I can now try to make this guy come off $50,000 when he's probably feeling, number one, he feels like, you know, how would you feel if somebody told you what you have isn't worth anywhere near as much as you thought it was worth? It's not as nice as you thought it was. What's that?
If they had the data to support it?
If they had the data to support it, great, yeah. I mean, you mean if the realtor does?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's how you feel, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people are going to, like I said, they're just going to be held, no, I can't be that wrong. Listen, this is how people are. Look, I can't be that wrong.
Yeah,
there's something wrong with these numbers.
Because Zillow said.
Yeah, right. Well, all you need to do with Zillow, you just scroll to the bottom and show them.
I tell them.
Yeah, you just show them that. So Zillow, that's an easy one. So basically, you know. But the bottom line is this. This is a mindset thing, okay? When you are working with a seller, don't put them in the position of making them tell you a price. It's not fair. It's not fair to you or to them. They don't have the data that you do. So why should you, you thought it was worth $300, it's only worth $250, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, is that but what is the goal of asking that question? I'll tell you what the goal is. It's for an agent who is going to try to come up with a CMA to support their price or get as close to it as possible so it's non-confrontational. They want a non-confrontational listing appointment. Well, you think it's worth $300, I can see about $275, knowing full well it's worth $250. That's not helping anybody. It's not helping you, it's not helping the seller, it's not helping the real estate community. When I worked in Alabama, okay, there was a big subdivision, huge subdivision, okay? And the houses in there had been priced about $180,000. You can buy a lot of house in Alabama for $180,000. You can buy a lot of house for 180 grand. There was about 8 or 9 houses for sale in that subdivision. Every single one of them had been on the market for over a year and a half. Every single one of them. You know why? They were all convinced that their house was worth $180,000. Period. Period. That was it. Now, you can go in there and go do a CMA for them and say to them, look, this house is worth 140, 145. It's not going to be met with a whole lot of high energy, with a lot of positive energy. Okay? If you come in there, like she just said, if you come in there with the actual data, you stand a chance. And then what's going to happen? All the other dominoes are going to fall. You're not helping. So basically, this is a real estate community. And by the way, it's not one realtor that has those houses listed. There's about a half a dozen realtors that have those houses listed in the subdivision. They're not doing themselves any favors. They're not doing the real estate community any favors. They're not doing the economy of that town any favor. I mean, this is wrong in every single aspect of it, but no one wants to hurt anybody's feelings. But in the same time, the general public who's not buying these houses is basically kicking dirt on them, right? You have to give, look, in my opinion anyway, you have to give a realistic CMA. You have to give them the real price, not the price that they want it to be. Not the price they want it to be. You see how easy it is for, my mother's a very smart woman. My mother was the tax collector for the town that she lived in for 30 years, okay? Like she collected all the taxes for the town, right? She did the budgets, all that stuff. See how easy it was for her to be fooled? Yes?
Are you not asking their debt either?
I'm sorry?
Are you not asking them?
Not as part of the CMA.
No.
No. No, because again, like, you know, what you owe or where you want to move to has nothing to do with that next guy, nothing to do with that next guy buying the house. Now, I will talk about that during the listing presentation, absolutely. But again, I'm not going to talk about it until we've discussed price. Because now, what if I find out you owe $250,000, you've been paying on this house for 10 years? What do I naturally, what do I want to do to be a nice person? I want to get you more money. I want to get you more money, but it's not there. It's not there.
At that point, if they are upside down, then at that point they would decide on their own either it's a short sale or.
Yeah, they would decide at that point, is this a short sale? Do I just ride it out? Can I afford to ride it out? Do I, you know, do I talk to, see, I told you, do I talk to Roger and refinance it? I told you there'll be an opportunity for the commercial. See that? I said I wasn't planning one, but if the door was open and you just opened it, thank you. Should we have Roger try to refinance them? Because here's the thing, if you can refinance them, maybe a year or two from now they really appreciate what you did, and maybe they give you a couple of referrals, or maybe 2 years from now when things turn around for them, maybe they want you to sell the house again. You see what I'm saying? So make sure you keep Roger's card on you. All right. So yeah, that's what you'd be doing at that point. But again, that's more of a listing presentation question. So what I want to talk about very quickly is, Patrick, I'm glad you're back in the room. When I was with KW, we had Camp 443, which became Ignite. Do you guys still have all of those great charts that KW had on overcoming objections, the triangle and the steps? Do you still have that? Is that still in?
I use a lot of those slides in my presentation.
Perfect. Okay. Get them. If you don't already have them, get them and put them in your listing presentation book. Because even after you go over all of this and basically, I know it's not proving, but let's call it prove the price of them. Show them your work, show them your price. You know what they're still going to say? Okay, but let's try. Maybe now instead of saying 260, 290, maybe they'll say 260 because again, I didn't put them on the spot by asking them that, right? So maybe they say, yeah, okay, but let's try 260. You need to be able to whip out those. KW has some great charts. In fact, I need to get a copy of them so I can start using them for like when I'm in the KWs. I just don't work for KW anymore, so I don't have them. But you know, there's 3 or 4 great charts that handle pricing objections visually. And you guys all have access to them. Yeah. Every one of you has access to them. So if I were you, I would get them, I would print them, and I would use them because no matter how much you do, they are still going to ask you. And by the way, notice what I said? They're asking you for the higher price. They're not telling you the higher price. They're asking for it. You see the dynamic change here? But what do you think? Do you think we can get 260? I wish we could, but it's not here. It's not here. You see what I'm saying? It isn't here. So if we start at 260, here's what's going to happen. And I open up the triangle chart. And it shows here's the median price, and the longer it's on the market, you start getting this much and this much. You know, and if you start, you know what I mean? It's a nice little chart that you can use. Did somebody have the end up? Yes.
What about, they're asking if they can get more because they've had upgrades?
Uh-huh.
Where we've done our chart and we know the number of bedrooms and
Yeah.
style and all that.
Yeah.
But we don't know what kind of upgrades they've had.
Again, you're going to adjust. Well, you should, because again, I always want you to see the house before you do the CMA. And if you see upgrades, like high-end upgrades, that's what that condition thing is for.
Well, I'm saying you go into the house for the CMA
Mhm.
and they tell you about all their upgrades.
Yeah.
And all the numbers still match for our
Mhm.
comps, but we don't know what kind of upgrades they might have.
What, the other house?
Yeah.
That's why we don't even bring that into the conversation.
Yeah.
Now, if they're going to sit there and say, well, you know, like I have granite counters and they had, you know, whatever, right? You know, just like a regular Formica counter. Like I said, at the beginning, I said, now remember, what I said was, when we sit down, the first thing I'm going to say to them is, now, Mr. Seller, actually, I didn't tell you guys this, and I should have. I said it earlier. But when we sit down, before I show them this, I'm going to say, no, listen, Mr. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what we're going to focus on is the numbers on this piece of paper, because this is what the bank is going to focus on, right? We're not going to focus on the, you know, the molding and little things like that. There could be some things that you have more of in this house, or they have more of something else in that house. Those things tend to work themselves out, okay? And the banks don't really care about that stuff. Now, with that said, if you walk into a house and you see like this gourmet kitchen, well, you better adjust for that. You know what I'm saying? That's where condition comes in. And you might write in plus 20,000, write yourself a note, drag it down to the bottom and write gourmet kitchen. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. You know what I mean? You know, put that on there. But don't be surprised by it. Don't walk in with CMA and have to adjust for something you didn't know was in that house. Right? Don't walk in and have to adjust for something that you didn't know was there, because that's not going to, just devalues this whole thing. Exactly. Completely and utterly would devalue. Like, wait a minute. So you did this because, remember, they want more money, and you're the one bringing them the bad news, not the good news. Right? So you have to give them bad news and hope that they still hire you. That's like walking into an interview, right? You're walking in for an interview, and you say to the guy, hey, listen, I hate getting up early. I'm really cranky in the morning, and I know I have to start here at 6 a.m., but I'll be here. And hope that he hires you. Another good line that I have always used to defend both my price and to get them to do certain work that needs to be done, and I stole this from my friend in Alabama. I loved it, and I've used it ever since. We are in a price war and a beauty contest at the same time, and in order to sell your house, we have to come in first place in both. Price war and a beauty contest, and we have to come in both. We have to come in first place in both. Because think about it, they're comparing your $250,000 house to some other $250,000 house, which means you have to be the best house in that $250,000 price range. Mr. Seller, do you think that you're the best house in the $275,000 price range? I've gone as far, if I had a good enough relationship with sellers, I have gone as far as to take them to tour houses in the price range that they wanted to price their house at. This is what you're competing with. Sometimes it's just a matter of driving by. Just do me a favor. Drive by these two houses and then call me. Or we'll take a ride. Let's take a ride. I want you to see what you're like. If my mother was my client, I would have put her in the car. I would have driven to Lee's Platte, which is the neighborhood where the $300,000 houses are, and I would have said, why would somebody want your house when they can have this one? No, I wouldn't. I said it because it's my mother, I would say that. I wouldn't say that in those words to a regular client, but that's, you know, it would be like, look, let me ask you something. Honestly and truly, I'm going to give you the choice for the same price. You can either be in this house or this house. Which one would you choose? And you like your house, don't you? You love your house. You have memories there. You've done work to it. You know, you have your heart and soul there, right? And even you would pick this one. It's hard. But if you don't go into it with some data that they can touch. See, the problem with the regular CMA book, it's just too sterile. It's too, even if you did put the adjustments in there, there's no key, there's no notes. You don't have the MLS sheets for the other properties behind it. You see what I'm saying? You're doing the same work? Yes, you're doing the exact same job. Like I said, I'm not trying to teach you a new way to make a CMA or come up with a price. I'm trying to teach you a new way to present your price because there's nothing more important for your client's financial health than them listing their house at the right price right away, right from the word go. Make sense? Any questions? It's hard. It's hard to do because you're delivering bad news. Who here likes to deliver bad news? Let me ask you this. Who here has a history of having to deliver bad news? Just a couple. Just a couple of us, right? It's not something that most of us have a skill set for. I mean, other than telling your kids they can't have something, really, well, like, when's the last time you really had to sit down and lower the boom on somebody? Because, by the way, telling somebody who thinks they're holding on to 300 grand, that they're only holding on to 250, is lowering the boom on them. Somebody who thinks they're going to walk away with 100 grand in their pocket, or 60 grand in their pocket, that's only going to walk away with 10 grand, that's not good. They don't want to hear that. But again, look, instead of leaving with 10 grand, you might be leaving with nothing. And that's on us. That's on us. See, here's the thing. Every listing that I lost or didn't take as a result of me and the seller not agreeing on price, at least I could walk away and say, whatever happens, I did my best. Shame on this other person for giving them that price. And I always, when I leave, if I lose because of price, I always say to them, hey, listen, do me one favor. If the other agent who is so sure of this price asks you for a price drop, please don't give it to them. Ask them for a release and call me. That's all I'm asking. That's it. That's all you can do. It's just like lead generating. All you can do is present the facts and do your best. It's up to them what they're going to do. See, because sometimes they don't want 275, they need 275. So they would rather take a shot at 275 than do nothing. And there's nothing you can do about that. Okay? Everybody with me? Any questions? Okay. A little different than what I normally do, right?
Yes.
All right, a little different. It's a little more P.T. Barnum for me, but but hey, it is what it is. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. And again, thank you, everybody. And again, Roger is here. If you need him, you have his card. By the way, oh! I need a card. I need a card from everybody. Ah, there we go. I knew that's where you were going.
Yes.
Here's a couple. Okay, here's the triangle chart. Here's a I love this one. This is one of my favorites. And basically, what it shows is, and again, I know you can't all see this, but in the middle it shows priced at market value. The percentage of buyers that are going to look at your property is only 60%. Everybody think about that. Yeah. If you price your house at market value, 60% of eligible sellers, buyers, will look at your house. If you price it 10% below market value, 75% of them will look at the house. And if you price it 15% below, 90% will look at it. But look at this. And by the way, what's the law of supply and demand say? The more demand, the higher the price, right? So in other words, if you price it 10 to 15% below, there's a good chance you're going to get even more than market value for it. But look at this. If you price it 10% above, instead of 60% seeing it, only 30% will see it. And if you price it 15% above, only 10% of eligible buyers will actually come and look at your house. This other chart is your first 30 days showing how critical they are, the activity level. It's too small to see, but this is great for the people who say, let's try it for a little while at my price. You need to immediately whip out this chart first and then the triangle chart, okay? Everybody with me? Thank you. Can I keep these? Thank you. All right, everybody, thank you very much.
Well done, as usual, Fred.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And I need a card from all of you before you sneak out, please.